Experience and knowledge matter in SAP SuccessFactors implementations. Professional certifications are a way for you to validate both, but selecting an implementation partner can be intimidating. We're here to make it a little bit easier on you. Thanks for joining our live stream today. We encourage you to leave questions and comments below and be a part of our live discussion. And now, let's welcome our panelists.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live session on how to consider SuccessFactors consultant certifications. My name is Craig Powers, and I am the managing editor at Rizing. And today I am joined by three experts at different companies, and that those experts are certified by me on SAP SuccessFactors Consulting. Just a reminder before we get started, with everyone working from home, internet bandwidth is stretched these days, and if something happens with the stream, bear with us and we'll get it back as soon as we can. And without that out of the way, let me introduce our panel. First, I have Luc Hedou, the CEO of Rizing HCM. How are you doing today, Luc?
Very well, thank you, Craig. And yourself?
I am very well. I'm the earliest here. I know we're stretched out across many time zones. Next, I want to introduce Bonnie Tinder, founder and CEO of Raven Intel. Bonnie, why don't you first, how are you doing? And also, why don't you kind of give us an overview of Raven Intel?
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me here. Raven Intel is a peer review site similar to Yelp or Glassdoor, but we focus on HR software consulting partners. And we help customers make a great decision in a software consulting partner based upon the wisdom of their peers.
Great, thanks, Bonnie. And finally, I have with me Luc Marson, another Luc. He is the president of Iserv Americas. Luc, go ahead and let us know what Iserv Americas is and tell us how you're doing today.
Thanks, Craig. I'm doing pretty well. Very hot here in Belgium, and sweating a lot with the window closed because I'm trying to keep the background interference down. Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm president of Iserv Americas. We're an SAP SuccessFactors implementation partner, much like Rizing HCM. Yeah, we're as keen on this topic as you are, and customers are as well.
Yeah, we really appreciate you, Bonnie and Luc, both joining us today. With that, I just want to jump right into the questions. So we're going to go through some questions. Feel free, all of you, to kind of jump in. I'm going to direct them at one of you, but yeah, feel free to jump in. Also, for the people watching, if you have any questions yourself, go ahead and drop those in the comments, and hopefully we can get those answered. But first, for you, Luc Hedou, what are the different levels of SuccessFactors certifications, and what do those mean? And then also, how do customers kind of find that information out, and how might they know kind of the level of consultant that is assigned to their work?
Well, thanks, Greg. I think that's an important question, and it's really key for customers seeking a partner for SAP SuccessFactors to understand the distinction between the different levels of certifications. I think that it's probably confusing for a lot of partners out there. When they hear certifications, what does it mean, and is it all the same? And it isn't. There's two separate certifications, and they're quite radically different. The first one is an associate certification, and really the barrier to entry to be able to be a certified consultant or an associate is to be able to write an exam. So, for example, you could have somebody who's fresh out of school and just very keen and great at writing exams, and could really become an associate very rapidly without never having spent a day consulting, nor having really any knowledge of the business itself. Essentially, the level of certification called the professional certification is one where to be able to obtain it, you need to have been the lead consultant on a specific module within the last 3 years. You need to have received a positive 3 separate positive reviews from customers. And of course, you need to meet the minimum requirements of being an associate as well. So you also need to write the exam. So again, it's widely different because with one, there's really no guarantees that you've ever done a day of consulting. It's not necessarily the case, by the way. You could be an associate and have done several projects and never got around to it. So it's important to know that as well. But certainly when you've reached the level of a professional consultant validated by SAP, it means that you have a positive history of having done consulting for a specific module. And I think it's important for customers and prospects seeking the right partner to know the distinction. So how do they find out about it? I think probably the easiest way is if you're engaging with a firm with potentially is to ask them, because otherwise there's a very, very good chance that they will just talk about certifications broadly, but ask this specific question to your potential partners about the level of certification. And there's links out there as well where you can find out specifically that SAP publishes and makes available to everyone on the Acclaim site, and where essentially a customer can self-serve and go validate themselves for a specific consultant being positioned on their project, whether they are an associate or a professional.
Great, and yeah, as noted below, you can find that link to that Acclaim site for the SAP Consultant Directory in our comments. Now that we know kind of what the certifications are, I think it's important to talk about what they mean for an implementation. So I wanted to point that at you, Luc, Marson. How critical, we know that certification is sort of a validation of previous work, but how critical is a professional certification to an implementation?
So I think it varies a little bit, or should I say it depends, the classic consultant's answer. Some of the modules are more complex than others. Some are in different, have a different history with certification. For the bigger, more complex modules, Employee Central, recruiting, or onboarding, I think it's a massive value add to have a certified professional leading that implementation. They're complicated modules. There's a lot of features. There's a lot of functionality. There's a lot of different solutions to business problems. And so it's really important that your consultant, alongside having business process experience, has that level of experience and expertise in implementing that solution. And that's what the professional certification, as Luc mentioned, brings to the table. Now, you have one anomaly, I would say, is Employee Central Payroll, because that's a brand new certification. You might not see many certified professionals out there at this stage, given that it's brand new. But payroll is also different because you want to be looking at people with 10, 15, 20 years of experience in implementing an SAP payroll and then implementing Employee Central Payroll. So I think that's why it's a little bit different. I would probably say, for some of the modules that are maybe a little less technical, that are much more process oriented, like performance management or succession management, it's maybe not quite as important to have a certified professional. But I still would, always recommend customers seek out a certified professional if it's possible for those modules.
That's great. And I'd point out, that in addition to ECP, obviously modules like Onboarding 2.0 that are very new, but also in something like that, you might want to look out for that Employee Central expertise and things like workforce software, where there aren't very many certified professionals. But again, you can check with your partner, and you can check on the Acclaim site to kind of find out who has these certifications. Bonnie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with Onboarding 2.0, you're right. That's another one like ECP, which is Employee Central Payroll, which is a bit newer. But those consultants should be a certified professional in Onboarding 1.0. So that's something that a customer can also look at to validate how much experience they have in onboarding. Yeah, technically it's a bit different, but if they've got a certified professional level Onboarding 1.0, then you can have a bit more confidence that they're going to understand the concepts in the Onboarding 2.0 solution.
Yeah, and I think that confidence is a good point, Luc. Obviously, people can have experience without the certification, but the certification gives you confidence that they do have that experience, and because it's been validated by SAP.
I would also,
Yeah,
I would also say that in addition to the module making a difference, I think it's also the task on the project. So not all activities or tasks on a project require a professional certification. Obviously, the barrier to entry is to at least be an associate. But if you're working on, say, language-backed translation work, it doesn't require that level of expertise. It's more on the more complex modules where you want the lead running the workshops to be a certified professional. I believe that's where it makes a difference.
Great, that's a great point, Luc. And I wanted to bring in Bonnie's expertise here kind of on the broader marketplace. So Bonnie, does the marketplace in general place an emphasis on the SIs having certifications? Do you see that as common across vendors?
I think it varies a lot. And if you think about software vendors that implement their own systems, they have internal training and onboarding for any of their staff that is customer facing. But for these larger software ecosystems like SAP and some of the other ERP vendors, they rely on a partner network to have their software implemented. And so it's really important for them to be able to ensure, a repeatable, reliable process when you have multiple partners, working on these projects, that the work is being done consistently. And I think that's why certifications are really important. But even within the ERP vendors, they have different levels of certification and different sort of how should I say, guidelines or enforcements to the degree of which certification is enforced. And if you look at SAP SuccessFactors, it's strongly encouraged for anyone working on a project to be certified, but it's not necessarily required, because you have staff members that don't necessarily are more process oriented as opposed to system. The benefit of this is, you have a greater consultant supply and availability, but it really makes it important for a customer, when engaging with a partner, to ask the questions about certification. Not so much, is your team certified, but are they certified in the modules that you'll be implementing? And, what level of certification do they have? As Luc was mentioning before, associate versus professional, there's a wide, experience variability between those two. So, having more professional certifications, shows that a team has more experience, as, witnessed by or certified by SAP. So I think that's important. And the other, so certifications are a piece, but it's a piece of the overall project, how should I say, success. And it really helps to guarantee that your consulting partner has systems expertise, and then as well as you consider some other things as well, but it really checks that box when somebody has a certification, that they have experience with that particular module.
Great, yeah, and that's great insight. Yeah, good advice on customers checking with their partners. I had another question for you, and it talks about the success rate of partner implementations. How do we know the success rate of those, and how do you define success of an implementation?
Yeah, it's a great question, because it's not a binary thumbs up or thumbs down. This implementation was a success or it was a failure. What we look at Raven Intel when we ask a customer to rate a project really is based upon 5 main areas of success, or KPIs. Number 1, it's the overall satisfaction. So did the project meet sort of the expectations going in, and to what degree? Number 2, was the project done on time? Was it done on budget? It's number 3. I think another area of success or a big leading indicator of a project's overall satisfaction is about the team quality and the team change. If you have team members or team leads, particularly, that change in the course of a project, that knowledge transfer is going to have a big impact on the project. Typically, when we see a consultant that changes a project team mid-project, customer isn't necessarily happy. So that's one of the big areas that we ask is how consistent was the team? And then finally, scoping quality. So, a framework is created initially before you start one of these projects with that sets a box around what is going to be done during this project, in what time frame, and what does our end picture look like. So we ask the question of the customer, how was the scoping? Was there multiple change orders that you have? If there was change orders, was it because you changed your scope of work, or was it things that were missed? And I think those 5 things are what we look at to really rate a project holistically and say, how effective was this? As we look at a consulting firm or an SI, as we talk about, call them in the industry, every project is going to be different. There's going to be, customer has, there's some that are going to be, off the charts great, some that are going to be tougher. But if you look at the overall, how should I say, scope of work that, or reviews that an SI have, we do see trends. And the best, SIs are ones that show consistency through, a group of projects. And I think, back to the conversation topic today, about certifications, the best SIs are ones that are investing in their consulting team to make sure that they know the product, that they have certifications, that they're kept up to date. And those really do translate, in large part, we see the results of that in positive projects as well. And so it's important, again, when you're looking at, partnering with a consulting firm to help lead you on your process, that you are looking at, projects that are similar to yours, and that, you're looking at all of those different factors. So certifications are a big part of it, but, what did other customers that look like me, what was their experience? And really, Raven Intel is designed to help show you that in a very independent way and give you, real customer experiences that you can use as sort of proof points to validate your partner choice. Great,
yeah, and again, I'll call out the Raven Intel, as you said, to validate that. And how about for the Luc? I was just curious about how you yourselves at your firms look at success of an implementation.
Well, we did it on a number of different aspects. I mean, going live is, for me, not necessarily a judge of success. Every project's going to go live eventually. But success is, did the project meet the goals that the customer set out when they went on this journey? Are they getting from this what they intended to? Has the user adoption, user acceptance been successful? I mean, some of these things you can't judge straight away. You have to give it 3 months, maybe 6 months until it's been live to understand that. The project team might be delighted with the way the project went, but you would have to look at how the system is being perceived. HR happy with the everyday use of the system? Is the self-service adoption gone up? Are you getting more and more engagement in the system and with employees based on what you've done? So you have to look at a range of factors. I think getting live on time and on budget and with a happy project team is definitely a good indication of how the implementation went during the implementation life cycle. But there's also that bit afterwards, which I think is the even more critical point. Right? The go live isn't the end; it's actually just the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Luc.
No, I would agree. I think for me, going live on time and on budget is kind of the barrier to entry of any project. It shouldn't be. It's an important measure, but I think the ultimate measure is the customer journey should be that they've done a business case where the intention and the positive business outcomes they're expecting have been identified at the beginning. Because how do you know it's been successful unless you're going to this journey with trying to make the organization better overall? So having a clear indication and a clear business case, and sharing that information with either the partner that you select has participated in building the business case along with you, or you've shared that information with them, of course, because they know what they need to, what they're striving for, not just a fully configured system at the end. Luc mentioned a lot of the good things, of course, user adoption, and those things are hugely important to the success overall. But I would say positive business outcomes need to be measured not only at the beginning, throughout, but at the end. And it's never really the end, as Luc identified. I mean, go live is the beginning of the journey ultimately, because it's an ongoing, living, breathing thing, and a relationship with your partner could also be something that's ongoing to ensure that you're making the most out of the solution.
Great. I actually had a question that came in from the comments. So the question is around the existing criteria. So what's your view? I can kind of point to maybe Luc Marson first to answer this, or Luc Hedou, whoever one of you can pop in on this. And Bonnie, if you have thoughts, let me know. So what is your view on the criteria for providing the professional certification? There's a little bit of a comment here. There are consultants who work on various project clients, not necessarily as a lead. Can SAP look at a background check through Launchpad support to check if the consultant has really worked for the client, and then decide on certifying as a professional once a consultant leaves an organization, touches law? So I guess the question there is, how do you view the existing criteria for the professional certification, and can SAP itself kind of verify through background checks what the consultant has done?
So for me, there's two parts to this. The first part about the criteria, I think the criteria is pretty good. It's fairly rigorous. You have to tick a few boxes, and you have to validate the aspects of the project that you've worked on with the customer. But I think the one thing they get at, and I have seen this before in the past, is the actual vetting process. I do know of one or two consultants who have got professional certification by using projects that other consultants had actually led and had already got their certified professional certification based on. So that that vetting process obviously wasn't quite in depth, and SAP were aware of that after the fact. But they weren't necessarily, even then they couldn't really verify what the actual facts were. So they left that person with that certified professional status. And that's a difficult thing. Sometimes a consultant can maybe have been the secondary consultant, or they could be a support consultant. They get a great rapport with the customer, and then the customer is willing to give that vetting. And I would just say to customers, that you shouldn't do that, because you have to think of the long-term ramifications. You're essentially saying this person has done something they haven't, which then means you're giving a kind of false confidence to another customer down the road, who is then maybe going to say, yeah, we'll have this person lead our project because they're certified professional, when actually they've never led a project. They've just been maybe doing a bit of support, or they've configured one or two areas. And that is then going to lead to problems with implementation, but it's also going to lead to problems with how people feel about the certified professional status. And it hurts people like Rizing, like Iserv, like certified professionals like myself, because then we lose the respect, and we lose that confidence in customers when they can't trust the program. So can SAP do more? I mean, SAP are relying on the customers to give them some honest feedback and to be truthful. I don't know necessarily what else they can do without maybe asking for more documentation. Send me the kickoff deck, send me your project plan, send me this and that, and maybe there's something they can do there. I don't know how widespread this is. I have seen a couple of cases of it, but I'm not 100% sure if it really is so widespread. I know it's some of the maybe so-called big five firms that you have maybe 5, 6, 7 consultants on a project. It's maybe not so typical for someone like a Rizing or an Iserv. They have many consultants on. You might find one of them applies for the professional certification when they've maybe only done role-based permissions. They might only have done a configuration of one aspect of that project or another aspect. They haven't done the whole thing. They haven't got that wide breadth of expertise. And so, customers should also, I think, and this goes back to some of the things that I think Luc had said earlier on as well, is customers also need to look at the certification, but also at the experience that the consultant brings to the table alongside that certification. What products have they been, what are the roles they've been on, and then often they can tie those things together. Maybe even if you get an interview a consultant, the likelihood is they're going to be quite truthful when asked directly about their experience, and you can tie that together.
I would add what certifications measure is someone's aptitude with the product. It does not measure their experience with the functional area. So if they're certified in the performance management module or payroll or something like that, there's no guarantee that they have real life business experience in that particular function. So it's a piece of the pie, but it's not everything.
So my take on this is I agree that the program as it is fairly solid. You need to establish a certain number of boxes to tick. I think the issue I've seen isn't so much if you were the lead or not the lead. I mean, I think one of the issues that we've come across is if your firm, for example, has a prepackaged implementation and you target perhaps a smaller client growth market with prepackaged integration, you could lead 3 implementations within a very short period of time. Whereas if your firm targets a larger enterprise where the projects tend to be longer, you could have someone that has a tremendous amount of experience, real life experience on a project, and they may not be certified professionals because of the fact that they're working on larger projects. So I think that's something else. It's another question to ask about your consultant. They may not be a certified professional, for example, on Employee Central, but they may have done 2 projects that were highly complex in large enterprise and just couldn't. It's still waiting on getting the 3rd done because of the length of the project themselves. So again, big fan of having certified professionals. I think it's hugely important to have a barrier to entry. To know the distinction between the two, but there's additional questions to be asked. If the individual isn't a certified professional, perhaps they meet the criteria in some other way of being a very, very strong consultant who can make the difference between success and failure without necessarily having the badge.
Great, and again, to kind of reiterate a couple points, talk to your implementation partner, talk to the consultants if you can, interview them. As Luc said, and then and I think that's a great point on long projects like for EC and stuff. It might be really hard to get the 3 projects in that 30-month window. I guess I'll kind of get back to my planned questions I had here, but those are great answers. Thanks for everyone on that. Luc, Marson, I have something for you. On the customer side of things, often the selection of a partner is run through procurement, but how can customers make sure their procurement department is tied into the selection of the most qualified candidate? Is there a better way than RFPs?
Yeah, this is a tough one, and this is something that I've come across before. I've seen it. Procurement are running a process. They're only running it based on the parameters that have been given to them, and I wouldn't expect procurement to be to understand what's certified professional in the SuccessFactors HXM space. They don't know these things. Look, I don't think the RFP process is necessarily a problem. I've seen some poor RFPs. I've seen some very good RFPs. I've been asked whether consultants are certified professional or not. I've been asked how many certified professionals my firm has versus associates. but I don't get it enough. I don't get as much as I would expect. And I think SAP need to do a job, particularly that their sales executives need to do a job on educating customers during these software sales life cycle on asking those sort of questions to potential partners. And those are things that should maybe end up in an RFP, or at least should be part of a vetting process if the customer's not going to go to an RFP process. And then the HR team or the IT team, or combination of both, need to make sure they're informing procurement that is one of the criteria, right? It shouldn't just be what's the annual revenue of the partner, how many consultants do they have worldwide, yeah, okay, decent metrics, but I think some of the more core metrics are at least a starting point. How many certified professionals you've got, how many associates. Yeah, there are going to be, as Luc mentioned, there are going to be, always going to be a couple of consultants each firm that don't have it. But if your firm has 0 certified professionals and 5 associates, and then this other firm has 5 or 10 certified professionals and 25 associates, there's a bit of a disparity there, and it doesn't matter if the one firm has got $1 billion in revenue and 800 consultants around the world. If actually what they're presenting to you in the SuccessFactors space is pretty much an uncertified team.
Right. It doesn't matter how many certifications somebody a firm has if the team that you're assigned doesn't have them.
That's a great point, Bonnie.
Yeah.
That's another thing too. Another thing about talking to your partner and asking, if they're telling you certification numbers, you need to ask them, okay, are those professional certified consultants that you have, are they actually going to be on our project, and are they actually certified in the modules that we want to implement? And so that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thanks, Luc, for that. And kind of our last question here. I'm going to start with you, Luc Hedou. What recommendations do you have for someone selecting a partner? Obviously, we've covered that somewhat. Does this often happen before software is even selected, or is there perhaps a different partner that helps to select the software? What's the process there?
No, what I would say is that I think we've covered some of that. I'll probably focus on, sorry, there's somebody knocking on my door and distracting me. That's the beauty of live. So I'd say we, when selecting a partner, I think we've covered the ground around. You can look at sites like Raven Intel, I think, which is it's fairly unique in it's not biased in any way, right? It's really independent, and I think it's a good source of information. You can talk to SAP as one of the data points. Obviously, the SAP reps know which partners have done good work in the past. You have to make sure to have multiple data points, because the SAP rep may have a bias because they've worked with certain partners in the past. But it's certainly, I think, another way of finding out who the good partners are out there, in addition to some of the empirical data we've already talked about, which is looking at a claim as a site, for example, for figuring out overall. A claim isn't really set up to very quickly have pull for the total number of certifications that you have for a specific firm. It's kind of like one data point at a time. So we tend to, as an organization, we think, because it's just hugely important, we do the work at quarterly to do a validation and pull for all firms globally the certification, so that we know where we stand and continue to push hard on ensuring that that we continue to do well in that space and have many certified professionals as well as associates. And in new areas like ECP, Luc mentioned earlier, Employee Central Payroll is a relatively new certification. When that came out, we continued to push very, very hard to ensure that we would move quickly and get the certifications. And it's a completely different area, because ECP is mostly the same product as the payroll engine that's been around for for quite a while. So as mentioned earlier by Luc, is you're not going to look at somebody that the ECP experience is important, but then look at the last 12 years of experience implementing the same engine with some of the nuances that ECP brings, like the Payroll Control Center and other things. Really is the step isn't that high, but no doubt you have to have a couple of data points. You have to do your own research when finding what the right partner is, and probably not rely on a single point of information to try to weed out as much as possible the biases that are out there. And again, looking at a site like Raven Intel, I think is a great source, independent source, and as the data comes in, and obviously is a great tool.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there are multiple data points to look at. And Luc covers a lot of them. I think customer references is another area that are quite important as well. Making sure that you're getting the team that are being presented as well when you talk with a partner. Not just you speak with 4 people and the project turns up and you get 7 different. You want to get that confirmation, because also as well, talking about certifications, you want to be checking the certifications of that team as well. So if you're getting that deep dive, you want to make sure you're actually checking the people that you're going to be getting as you go along. I'll echo Luc's sentiments about Raven Intel. I think it's a great data point. I mean, maybe I would say that because we have great reviews on there, as Rizing also do. But those are independent ratings that customers have given. Raven Intel has gone out and sought those independently and built up a really good database there of all the partners and what their ratings are as well. Customers have just got to make sure they do their due diligence. They've got to ask the right questions. They have to look at the different data points. It's a bit of a fluid process. It's not just about ticking boxes. That's a good way, I think, of kind of at least whittling down. But when it comes down to picking, you have to look at different things. You have to look at the type of firm that it is. What is their DNA? What are their offerings? Are they going to be able to help you in other areas? And you could be working with this company for a long time. So you want to make sure that the culture fit is there as well.
I would add that's the cultural fit is huge. I would say do not assume, number one, that because your salesperson or account executive walked a SI in, that is the right choice for you. As Luc mentioned, you are going to live with the partner choice that you make. So you want to make sure that independently you are doing your due diligence, and that firm has implemented successfully other customers like you. And I would say number 2 is don't assume because you are familiar with like a brand name or a big 5 type of consulting firm, or you've used them for another project, in IT somewhere, or management consulting, that is going to guarantee success. We at Raven, we look at projects all the time, and there is absolutely no correlation between name brand and project success. So much of the time, independent firms, boutique firms offer a very deep level of expertise that really is compelling. And so don't assume, again, that because you recognize the name of a consulting firm that automatically is going to be the best choice for your organization. There's lots of options to consider, and independently making that choice and confidently making that choice is really going to determine the success of the software in the long term. So it's an important choice to make, and it's one that you want to make with confidence.
Great, thanks, Bonnie. I think that's a great point to end on there. I want to thank everyone for joining our panel today. That was a great discussion on certification, on selecting partners. Again, I'd encourage customers to check out Raven Intel. Many have tried to create something like this in the past, and many have failed, but Bonnie has certainly created the best resource that I've ever seen, and that I've heard other people have seen who have been in this longer than me. So again, check that out. It's a great resource on SAP consultancies. So yeah, thank you again, Bonnie, Luc, and thank you everyone for watching and joining us today, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.